Hare Krishna. So we welcome you all to this reading session on Krishna book, chapter 2, part 2. We have already studied approximately 8 pages. So we'll study the part 2. So before this, we will just like to give you small information that we have already shared with you this information in the previous video, that we'll share a video today about the discussion of chapter 1 quiz and the problems you might have faced while submission and how to resolve them. So if you have not seen this video, please do watch it. So let's begin our session by chanting this prayer. Krishna 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 He Krishna 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 He Krishna 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 Rakshamam Krishna 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 Pahimam Ram Raghav Ram Raghav Ram Raghav Rakshamam Krishna Keshav Krishna Keshav Krishna Keshav Pahimam. So let's read. But before this, we'll just chant the pranam mantra of Srila Prabhupada. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we were reading Krishna book, and this is where we are supposed to begin. We had read that Kamsa was so fearful about the appearance of Lord in the womb of Devaki, because he could realize that Lord Krishna had taken shelter in the womb of Devaki because she was so uh, shining. Her whole she became so beautiful, and only Kansa could recognize this fact. And we also learned that Lord Krishna did not appear just like an ordinary human being appears, or an ordinary living entity appears just by seminal discharge, but rather he appeared in the heart of Vasudev, and then in the heart got transferred to the heart of Devaki, and that made Devaki the residing place of the Supreme Lord. So let's start studying from here again. At this time, Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, accompanied by great sages like Narad, I'll just little bit make it 40. At this time, Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, accompanied by great sages like Narad and followed by many other demigods, invisibly appeared in the house of Kamsa. They began to pray to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in select verses which are very pleasing to the devotees and which award fulfillment of their desires. The first words they spoke acclaimed that the Lord is true to his vow. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna descends to this material world just to protect the pious and destroy the impious. That is his vow. The demigods could understand that the Lord has taken his residence within the womb of Devaki to fulfill his vow, and they were glad that the Lord was appearing in order to fulfill his mission. Then the demigods addressed the Lord as Satyam Param, or the Supreme Absolute Truth. Everyone is searching after the truth, That is the philosophical way of life. The demigods give information. The demigods give information that the supreme absolute truth is Krishna. One who becomes fully Krishna, I think I missed some point. Then the demigods address the Lord as Satyam Param, or the supreme absolute truth. Everyone is searching after the truth. That is the philosophical way of life. The demigods give information that the supreme absolute truth is Krishna. One who becomes fully Krishna conscious can attain the absolute truth. Krishna is the absolute truth because, unlike relative truth, he is truth in all three phases of eternal time. Time is divided into past, present, and future. Krishna is truth always, past, present, and future. In the material world, everything is being controlled by supreme time in the course of past, present, and future. But before the creation, Krishna was existing, and when there is creation, everything. Just a minute. But before the creation, Krishna was existing, and when there is creation, everything is resting in Krishna, and when this creation is finished, Krishna will remain. Therefore, he is the absolute truth in all circumstances. If there is any truth within this material world, it emanates from the supreme truth, Krishna. If there is any opulence within this material world, the cause of the opulence is Krishna. If there is any reputation within this material world, the cause of the reputation is Krishna. If there is any strength within this material world, the cause of such strength is Krishna. If there is any wisdom and education within this material world, the cause of such wisdom and education is Krishna. Therefore, Krishna is the source of all relative truths. This material world is composed of five principal elements: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And all such elements are emanations from Krishna. The material scientists accept these five primary elements as the cause of the material manifestation. But the elements in their gross and subtle states are produced by Krishna. The living entities who are working within this material world are products of his marginal potency. In the seventh chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly stated that the whole manifestation is a combination of two kinds of energies of Krishna, the superior energy and the inferior energy. The living entities are the superior energy, and the dead material elements are his inferior energy. In its dormant state, everything remains in Krishna. The demigods continued to offer their respectful prayers unto the supreme form of the personality of Godhead, Krishna, by analytical study of the material manifestation. What is this material manifestation? It is just like a tree. A tree stands on the ground. Similarly, the tree of the material manifestation is standing on the ground of material nature. This material manifestation is compared to a tree because a tree is ultimately cut off in due course of time. A tree is called vriksha. Vriksha means thing which will be ultimately cut off. Therefore, this tree of material manifestation cannot be accepted as the ultimate truth because it is influenced by time, but so this tree of material manifestation cannot be accepted as ultimate truth because it is influenced by time. But Krishna's body is eternal. He existed before the material manifestation. He is existing while the material manifestation is continuing, and when it will be dissolved, he will continue to exist. Therefore, only Krishna can be accepted as the absolute truth. The Katha Upanishad also cites this example of the tree of the material manifestation standing on the ground of material nature. This tree has two kinds of fruits: distress and happiness. Those who are living in the tree of the body are just like two birds. One bird is the localized aspect of Krishna known as Paramatma, and the other bird is the living entity. The living entity is eating the fruits of this material manifestation. Sometimes he eats the fruit of happiness, and sometimes he eats the fruit of distress. But the other bird is not interested in eating the fruit of distress or happiness, but he is self satisfied. So, what is being discussed over here is that the Katha Upanishad, it is an Upanishad amongst the 108 Upanishads, a very famous Upanishad. So, Katha Upanishad also gives this example of the tree, that this material world or the material manifestation is standing on the ground of material nature. This tree has uh, two birds sitting on it. One is the Jiva, that is the spirit soul, and the other is Paramatma, who is the localized aspect of Krishna, who is present in everyone's heart. So this tree is having fruits of two types. What are they? Happiness and distress. So one of the birds is eating the fruits which are on the tree, and the other bird is just watching. Why is it watching? Because he's simply witnessing what this bird is trying to do. Okay, the roots of this tree. Why the sorry, I just forgot this point. That why is the bird the bird which is compared to Paramatma watching? Because he is self-satisfied. He does not want anything. Uh, so we will be discussing more about it just ahead. The roots of this tree extend in three directions. So first of all, we have one tree. Then on that tree there are two birds, and the two birds. Apart from that, there are two types of fruits: happiness and distress. Right now, the three. What is three? The the roots of this tree extend in three directions. This means that the root of the tree is the three modes of material nature. So you might have heard the name of Satogun, Rajogun, and Tamogun, that is goodness, passion, and ignorance. Just as the tree's roots expand, so by association of the modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, one expands his duration of material existence. Okay, the taste of the fruits are of four kinds. What are they? Dharma, Arth, Kam, Moksha, that is religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and ultimately liberation. According to the different associations in the three modes of material nature, the living entities are tasting different kinds of religiosity, different kinds of economic development, different kinds of sense gratification, and different kinds of liberation. So, practically, all material work is performed in ignorance, but because there are three qualities, sometimes the quality of ignorance is covered with goodness or passion. The taste of these material fruits is accepted through five senses. The five sense organs through which knowledge is acquired are subjected to six kind of whips, that is infirmities or doshas: lamentation, illusion, infirmity, death, hunger, and thirst. This material body or the material manifestation is covered by seven layers: skin, flesh, blood, marrow, bone, fat, and semen. The branches of the tree are eight: earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego. There are nine gates in this body: the two eyes, two nostrils, two ears, one mouth, one genital, one rectum. And there are 10 kinds of internal air passing within the body: pran, apan, uh, uddan, vyan, saman. So if you see, there are we have covered a whole list of numbers from 1 to 10. So, what is 1? That there is a tree of material manifestation. What is 2? That there are two birds, and there are two types of fruits in this tree, that are the fruit of happiness and the fruit of distress. What is 3? The roots of this tree are extending in three directions: goodness, passion, and ignorance. And what is 4? The the fruits are of two types, but their taste are of four types. What are they? Dharma, Arth, Kam, Moksha. That is religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. Then what is 5? We have 5 types of senses. What are they? Eyes, nose, ears, tongue, and skin. These are knowledge acquiring senses, or the 5 sense organs. And these sense organs are subjected to 6 type of whips or problems. What are they? Lamentation, illusion, infirmity, death, hunger, and thirst. This material body or the material manifestation is covered by 7 layers. So this body is covered by 7 layers. What are they? Skin, flesh, blood, marrow, bone, fat, and semen. Then what is 8? 8 is the elements with which this the branches of the tree. What are the branches of the tree? Earth, water, fire, air, ether, and mind, intelligence, and ego. So all the subtle elements as well as the gross elements. There are 9 gates in this body. So if you check the body, we have total of 9 gates. What are they? 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, 1 mouth, 1 genital, and 1 rectum. And 10 kind of airs are passing in this body, which keep the body healthy. So the root cause of the material manifestation described here is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Personality of Godhead expands himself to take charge of the three qualities of the material world. Vishnu takes charge of the mode of goodness, Brahma takes charge of the mode of passion, and Lord Shiva takes charge of the mode of ignorance. So they are taking the charge of it, they are not influenced by it. Brahma, by the mode of passion, creates this manifestation. Lord Vishnu maintains this manifestation by the mode of goodness, and Lord Shiva annihilates it by the mode of ignorance. The whole creation ultimately rests in the Supreme Lord. He is the cause of creation, maintenance, and dissolution. And when the whole manifestation is dissolved in its subtle form as the Supreme Lord's energy, it rests within his body. At present, so the demigods are praying, at present, the demigods prayed, the Supreme Lord Krishna is appearing just for the maintenance of this manifestation. Actually, the Supreme Cause is one, but less intelligent persons, being deluded by the three modes of material nature, see that material world is manifested through different causes. Those who are intelligent can see that the cause is one, and that is Krishna. As it is stated in the Brahma Samhita, Ishvaraha Paramaha Krishna Sarvakarana Karanam. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the cause of all causes. Brahma is the deputed agent for creation, Vishnu is the expansion of Krishna for maintenance, and Lord Shiva is the expansion of Krishna for dissolution. Excuse me. Our dear Lord, the demigods prayed, it is very difficult to understand your eternal form or personality. People in general are unable to understand your actual form, therefore, you are personally descending to exhibit your original eternal form. Somehow, people can understand the different incarnations of your Lordship, but they are puzzled to understand the eternal form of Krishna with two hands moving among human beings exactly like one of them. This eternal form of your lordship gives ever increasing transcendental pleasure to the devotees. But for the non-devotees, this form is very dangerous. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is very pleasing to the sadhus, paritranai sadhunam. But this form is very dangerous for the demons because Krishna also descends to kill the demons. So we see that Prahlad Maharaj, who was the son of Hiranyakashipu, so Hiranyakashipu was fearful when Lord Nrsimhadev came out of that pillar. But Prahlad Maharaj was completely fearless. He didn't. He could see that his Lord had come to protect him. So uh, we were. This form is very dangerous for the demons because Krishna also descends to kill the demons. He is therefore simultaneously pleasing to the devotees and dangerous to the demons. Our dear lotus eyed Lord, you are the source of pure goodness. There are many great sages who simply by samadhi or transcendentally meditating upon your lotus feet and thus being absorbed in your thought have easily transformed the great ocean of nescience created by the material nature into no more than the water in a calf's hoofprint. The purpose of meditation is to focus the mind upon the personality of Godhead, beginning from his lotus feet. Similarly, by meditation on the lotus feet of the Lord, great sages cross over this vast ocean of material existence without difficulty. O self-illuminated one, the great saintly persons who have crossed over the ocean of nescience by help of the transcendental boat of your lotus feet have not taken away that boat. It is still lying on this side. If one takes a boat to cross a river, the boat also goes with one to the other side of the river. And so, when one reaches the destination, how can the same boat be available to those who are still on this side? To answer this difficulty, the demigods say in their prayer that the boat of the Lord's lotus feet is not taken away. The devotees still remaining on this side are able to pass over the ocean of material nature because the pure devotees do not take the boat with them. When they cross over, when one simply approaches the boat, the whole ocean of material nescience is reduced to the size of the water in a calf's hoof print. Therefore, the devotees do not need to take the boat to the other side, they simply cross the ocean immediately because the great saintly persons are compassionate towards all conditioned souls. The boat is still lying on this side. In other words, one can meditate upon the lotus feet of the Lord at any time, and by doing so, one can cross over the great ocean of material existence. So let's try to understand what is being told here. See, first of all, it was told that the boat of your lotus feet. So the lotus feet of Lord have been compared with what? A boat, right? And this ocean of material existence, the ocean of material nature, right? So people want to cross it over. We want to cross it over to go back to uh, our eternal home. So it said that if you take a boat and you cross a river, then the boat goes with you. And if somebody is standing beside, backside, at the place like where you began from, so when you have reached the destination, anybody who wants to again cross over will have no boat because the boat is on the other side. But that's what the demigods are praying, that when somebody approaches the boat of the transcendental feet of Lord Krishna, the whole material existence becomes transformed into water contained into a pool which is made by the calf of a cow. So, how much water does a calf's hoof print have? I think a very little amount of water, and even a small child can jump over it, right? So that's what it is being told over here, that we can cross over this great ocean of material existence. How? By meditating upon the lotus feet of the Lord at every time. Like we constantly remember, we constantly meditate upon the lotus feet of the Lord, then we will be able to cross over this ocean of material existence. Meditation means concentrating upon the lotus feet of the Lord. Lotus feet indicate the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but those who are impersonalists do not recognize the lotus feet of the Lord, and therefore their object of meditation is something impersonal. The demigods express their mature verdict that persons who are interested in meditating on something void or impersonal cannot cross over the ocean of nescience. Such persons are simply imagining that they have become liberated. O lotus-eyed Lord, their intelligence is contaminated because they fail to meditate upon the lotus feet of your Lordship. As a result of this neglectful activity, the impersonalist fall down again into the material way of conditioned life, although they may temporarily rise to the point of impersonal realization. So here Srila Prabhupada is talking about impersonalists, basically those who wish to merge into the, or who have a impersonal idea of God. Their objective of meditation is not the lotus feet of the Lord, but rather it is something impersonal or nirakar, right? So it is said that demigods are praying that it is not that ki if these demigods express the mature verdict that persons who are interested in meditating upon something simply void in person cannot cross over the ocean of material existence. So they are simply imagining that they have become liberated, right? So it's just a concept in their mind that yes, we have become liberated. But why it is so? Because they again, even if they temporarily rise to the point of impersonal realization, they will again fall down into the material way of conditioned life. So impersonalists undergo severe austerities and penances to merge themselves into Brahma effulgence or impersonal Brahma existence. But their minds are not free from material contamination. They have simply tried to negate the material ways of thinking. That does not mean that they have become liberated and thus they fall down. So, this is a very nice explanation given by Srila Prabhupada that those who are impersonalists, that is Nirvisheshwadi, those who have a conception of impersonal God, so they are just imagining. They're not free. Their minds are not free from material contamination. They are simply trying to negate the material way of thinking. But that, and even if they rise to this highest point, to the point of personal realization, still they will fall down into the material way of life because their heart is not free from contamination. So, in the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that the impersonalist has to undergo great tribulation in realizing his ultimate goal. At the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is also stated that without devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one cannot achieve liberation from the bondage of fruitive activities. The statement of Lord Krishna is there in the Bhagavad Gita, and in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the statement of the great sage Narad is there. And here also the demigods confirm it. Persons who have not taken to devotional service are understood to have come short of the ultimate purpose of knowledge and are not favored by your grace. The impersonalists simply think that they are liberated, but actually they have no feeling for the personality of Godhead. They think that when Krishna comes to this material world, he accepts a material body. This is the biggest problem. The impersonalists think that when Krishna comes to the material body, he accepts the material world. He accepts the material body. Thus, therefore, uh, they therefore overlook the transcendental beauty of Krishna. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Avajananti mam mudaha. In spite of conquering material lust and rising to the point of perfection, the impersonalists fall down. If they are engaged just in knowing things for the sake of knowledge and do not take to the devotional service of the Lord, they cannot achieve the desired result. Their achievement is the trouble they take. That is all. So, very nice explanation by Srila Prabhupada. He is giving here that the people who have not taken to devotional service are actually those people who have not received your grace. They are not favored by your grace. And the impersonalists are simply thinking that they are liberated and they don't have any feeling for the personality of Godhead. They think that when Krishna will come to this world, he accepts a material body. But that is absolutely false. Krishna himself tells in the Bhagavad Gita that avjananti mama mudha, that the people who are less intelligent will uh, not be able to understand him. In spite that therefore these impersonalists cannot actually understand that what is the real position of the Lord, and what do they achieve by doing such severe penances, so much tapasya, so much austerities. It is all, what is the final achievement? It is all the trouble that they take. That's all. Nothing else they will be able to achieve. So, thank you very much. We will halt our discussion at this point, and we wish to tell you that our next exam will be scheduled is scheduled for 28th of June, Sunday, at 8:30 p.m. to 9:15 p.m. We have already shared the study material in the groups. If you still need it, please write to us at krishnabookquiz@gmail.com, and your result for chapter number 2 will be declared tonight. Sorry, the result for chapter number 1 will be sent to your email ID today at 8 p.m. So we wish you all the best, and we had already communicated that we conduct Mangala Aarti every day at 5:15 to 5:45 for the pleasure of all devotees to facilitate them. And if you're already connected to an ISKCON temple, then you may please kindly continue going there. But if somebody is new and they wish to join our Mangala Aarti, so you can please be a part of it. The links will be shared on our WhatsApp group. So thank you very much for your time. Hare Krishna.